The sleeper will wake and the world will bleed.
Seize the moment, because tomorrow you might be dead.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the new show that we're doing. It is a Buffy the Vampire Slayer uh, retrospective, I guess, a show where we go through and just rewatch Buffy and just talk about it and have a lot of fun doing it. Buffy is a very big part of our lives, and it's just something that brought us together.
Yeah, it's like been my favorite show since I was like 10 years old, and I think about the same for you too. So
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like one of the big things that happened with us is that I think Carrie wanted to start dating me because I was a Buffy fan, pretty specifically. So, is that true?
Well, and no, it was just funny because I remember the first time we talked on the phone, I asked you, I think, what your favorite TV show was. And I was like, that would be so funny if you said Buffy, because that's my favorite TV show. And used to watch it on FX over and over and over again.
Mhm.
And then he actually said Buffy. I remember you said it like this. You were like, this is gonna sound kind of weird, but my favorite TV show is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I was like, there's no way.
Yeah. It just worked out that way. It just happened for me to be something that I just discovered. I got into it pretty late. I got into it when I saw my first episode was a season 7 episode, Him, which is a really great episode, really funny episode that we'll get to one day. As soon as I saw that episode, I was like, what is this show? And then I immediately had to figure out, because, this was before streaming. So we didn't really have a method to go onto a streaming app to watch the whole show. So we had to get a little creative. I had to wait for, I think, FX or uh, TNT.
TNT was Angel, FX was Buffy.
Whichever I was watching it on, probably FX. I had to wait for it to cycle back through, and then I was like, I need to like get the Blu-ray, or well, I guess there were DVDs because
I
they don't
didn't
have
even know you could.
Blu-rays.
I didn't even know you could buy DVDs of shows until I met you, and you had your
Oh,
Buffy DVDs.
I made sure that I could go on eBay. I made an eBay account just to get these things because there was really no better way to
It
get
was
stuff. I mean,
literally, I would go, it came on at the same time every day, and it was 2 episodes. It would do 2 episodes in the morning, and the same episodes would play in the
yeah.
afternoon. I never made really the morning ones, but I would come home from middle school, and yeah, every
Middle
day I would
school, yeah.
watch my 2 episodes of Buffy and just cycle through the show over and over again like that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it got, but like before I met Carrie, because I also started in middle school. And then when I was going to high school, I wanted to basically be Xander because that's the character that I identified with. And I was like, well, I got to go to high school. I got to have 2 friends who are girls. And I just really wanted to like mimic what the show was. Obviously, I guess without the vampires, but yeah, I don't know, I just love the show that much. And then when I found someone who loved it just as much as I did, it was just like a match made in heaven. And I think we've just, kind of cultivated that and just have really bonded over our love for Buffy. And it's something that, at some point we want to have our son watch and stuff. So basically the show is a way for us to kind of just get our thoughts out and maybe talk about it and from the perspective of a couple. So that's a lot of wind up for it, but this is a show that we're starting, and we're going to start with the very first episode. It is a 2-parter, but we're just going to do the first part in this episode. Welcome to the Hellmouth. Are you ready to talk about that episode?
Sure.
I mean, of course, Buffy started as a movie. Joss Whedon uh, decided to make a movie of this concept that he had of a twist on the whole thing, where normally it's a guy that's the hero that's going around killing the monsters, and like you got your Van Helsings and stuff like that. But what if it's a teenage girl that does it instead? He made the movie movie, I don't think did very well. At least he wasn't very pleased about the direction that went, and but then he decided to do a show, and I'm so glad he did because I think it's brilliant, and I'm very excited to get into this first episode. You get this where you have Buffy moving to a new town. You have her meeting a lot of people at this town, and then you get a little bit of history about Buffy from her old school and what happened there.
Yeah, so and it kind of ties in with the movie a little bit. They kind of nod at the movie. It turns out Buffy burned down her high school gym in Los Angeles where she and her mom used to live, which is how the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer ends.
Yeah.
With the gym burning down. So, and the kind of the reason they have to move to this new town is Sunnydale is because Buffy was expelled. They're trying to kind of start over in a new town, new life.
Yeah, and you get a lot of that kind of, animosity between her and her mom. Her dad has kind of like left the picture. We get a little bit of that in the series about her relationship with her dad, but like not too much really. So a lot of it is the relationship with her and her mother. You get a little bit of tension there because Joyce just wants to start a new life. Buffy also wants to do that, and we also get a little bit of Buffy not actually wanting to be a Slayer because all it has done is caused her a lot of trouble.
Yeah, definitely. So, when she comes to town and finds out that the librarian is actually her watcher, Giles, who we all, know and love, she, at first is very resistant to even addressing the fact that she is the Slayer and then actually like fulfilling her duties.
And he's like a first time watcher, so he's, just very excited to meet his new Slayer or his first Slayer and excited to show her his vampire book. And she doesn't want anything about that. She's like, I am not looking for that. And yeah, and that a lot of this introduces like the humor of the show, which I think is one of the biggest strengths of the show.
Yeah.
You have Xander, who's of course very, very funny, but I feel like every person has their moments to shine and to use the great dialogue that's written for the show. I feel like that's one of the other big strengths of the show is that it's what do they call it? A word perfect show where it's like the script is like airtight. And so everything that's written in there, the actors have to say, and Joss like developing his own language for the show, basically, where no one on TV like really talked like that, which I think adds to the humor and the quirkiness and the charm of the show.
Yeah.
And I think like that's one of the big things about the show, just in general too, is that even when it gets really cheesy, a lot of the effects are dated. Maybe it just gets a little bit cheesy. I feel like the writing is always extremely sharp. And if you look at Buffy as a whole in like the lexicon of like television and other shows that existed before it and after it that are of the same kind, like your X-Files, like your Supernatural, like your The Twilight Zone. I feel like Buffy is one of the only ones that's able to really like factor in that monster of the week style with also the overarching story and be able to like interweave a lot of these storylines so that you never really feel like it's halted. Like you can pick up and watch a lot of Buffy episodes without kind of like watching the rest of the show because they're like really entertaining and stuff, but they do, the writers did such a great job of interweaving everything that like once you watch one episode, you have to keep going because it's just so fascinating.
Yeah, it is kind of like certainly there are some episodes that are pretty strictly monster of the week.
Like
And
Go
really don't.
Fish.
Yeah, that's like one of the ones exactly I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Bad Eggs, my least favorite episode.
Wow.
But a lot you do notice like watching it over and over again how often the monster of the week episodes do actually loop in either the overarching, big bad for the season or the like emotional or relationship development of the characters. A lot of times in like episodes you don't really expect that happens. So it is kind of a show where even if you're tuning in to a Monster of the Week episode, usually, especially after season 1 and season 2, um, the Monster of the Week episodes are still really furthering the entire plot of the show. They're furthering the character development.
Yeah, and this episode in particular is not really like a Monster of the Week episode, but I mean, you do kind of get antagonists that are really only like in, focused in these episodes with
Luke?
Luke. With
Is he
Luke,
only in these two?
I think Luke dies at the end of
Okay, yeah, I
the
think that's
harvest.
right. Yeah.
And then Darla, of course, is not, just in these 2 episodes, but I feel like, she's mostly focused in these 2. I mean, she starts the series, which is such a really cool like opening scene, because we can't talk about this so what were we gonna say?
Well, I feel like it is kind of the opposite of what you said because all these vampires that were introduced. Wait, is the harvest the second episode?
Yes, it's the
Yeah, except for Luke, Darla and the Master, we kind of stay with them for.
Yeah, here and there. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, in the first season in particular, which I feel like a lot of people will say, like, especially if you're trying to get a new person into Buffy, a lot of people say season 1 is not like the best. It's a little bit like, maybe rough around the edges. It was one where they're just trying to first like get their footing. They didn't have like a huge budget. The writing was there, but really they didn't really not able to really find a huge focus. And so a lot of season 1 is just Monster of the Weeks for the most part. And then there's like a little bit of story. And I feel like the first great episode that we get is maybe like Prophecy Girl.
Yeah.
When they really start to ramp up the writing and make it like a little bit deeper and more emotional. But like this first one's not really a Monster of the Week episode. It's just, bringing Buffy into a new school, introducing a lot of the characters that you're going to be seeing, and introducing the big bad of the season, which you also have to talk about that. The term big bad was, I think it was created for Buffy.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And it's a term that like everyone uses when you talk about like an overarching villain, and especially in a TV show, but even in movies, like when they talk about like the big bad of the MCU for phase the Infinity Sagas, Thanos, or the big bad for like really any show, and so you can see just how Buffy not only just become a really good show, but one that kind of changed the lexicon and pop culture just in general of how we refer to things, which I think is amazing. And we don't get a ton of the Master. We get a little bit. We get like a little tease where it's like he wants out. He wants him, Luke, Darla. They all want the old ones, the vampires that were there before, like people, I guess, to come back and reign over everyone, kind of like what Loki wants to do in the MCU. And just like have everyone like kneel to them, have them as a food source, I guess. This is all kind of happening underground, under the school, where there is a Hellmouth.
And that's like the main like a big feature of the show is that Sunnydale is a Hellmouth, and that's why all of these things happen in Sunnydale. That's why there's so many demons and vampires for Buffy to slay, which is kind of brilliant. Like, just like setting it up so well that way.
Yeah, I think Joss, some of the if you're able to get some of the discs, like the DVDs, some of them will have like commentary and stuff. And I believe he said stuff like, it's not that he knew that it was kind of like a catch-all concept of the Hellmouth. Like, this is how we can get away with a bunch of weird stuff happening and people acting like they probably wouldn't in real life, because there's a lot of special, like, occurrences, like paranormal occurrences and monsters that show up in Sunnydale. And sometimes you're like, well, why wouldn't they, like, the police would show up, and maybe the parents would, like, be able to figure out what's going on. And it's like, no, 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 it's okay. It's on Hellmouth, so it's just like this mystical force fields that affects everyone. So yeah, it's kind of an easy way out of not having to explain too much about why Sunnydale is so weird. But in later episodes, you do get people talking about how they are aware that Sunnydale's not like other places. Sunnydale is special. Yeah, so it's Sunnydale is a character just like any other in the show. In this episode, Buffy meets.
Angel.
Yeah, I was gonna say Willow and Xander first, but yeah, we
no,
can.
let's do Willow and Xander first. That makes more sense.
So yeah, Buffy goes to school for the first time, Sunnydale High, and she meets Willow and Xander, but like not until a little bit later. We first see Xander. He's on a skateboard, which
never again.
he never would be again. I don't think he had a good time riding the skateboard.
Apparently not.
Nicholas Brandon, and so they're like, yeah, let's cut the skateboard. But then you get that like really funny dialogue between Xander and Willow that really sets up their relationship. You're very much the person I'd like to see right now, or I'm probably not going to get all the lines, word perfect, but and then you get kind of like a really good sense of their characters.
Yeah.
You find out very early on that Buffy has Xander has a thing for Buffy. When they run into each other in the hallway, you get a little bit of an awkward moment when Xander does Xander say, "Can I have you?"
I think so.
Yeah. And then can I help you?
Can I help you?
And then it's a little bit awkward, but it kind of shows that's kind of Xander's character for a good portion of the show, is that he's very awkward and he kind of diffuses a lot of stuff with his humor. What else? You meet Jesse, who is a very, very minor character.
Yeah, short-lived.
And yeah, because you just want the trio, so you can't have too many characters. And unfortunately, Jesse is killed. We're not on the harvest yet.
Well, we meet Cordelia though. We haven't mentioned Cordelia. She's like the popular girl, and is making fun of Willow, and Buffy kind of quickly is like, no, I think I actually want to make friends with Willow because I want to do well in school, and she seems like cool, and like immediately Buffy and Willow develop like a really great friendship.
It's actually kind of a really cool way to introduce Cordelia though, because they start out like, yeah, she's the popular girl and everything, but she's at first like very nice to Buffy. Like they're talking. She's like, I'll let you, borrow. We can share the textbook. I'm gonna like test your coolness factor. And she's just like, going through the whole thing and just really, becoming friends with Buffy at first. But then yeah, Buffy sees just that she's not nice to Willow, and then we have kind of a Harry Draco moment. Where Buffy says, I can tell, what is it? I can tell the wrong sort for myself, thank you. And defends Willow. And then Willow, of course, is, receptive, but is also like just so shy and reserved that she's like, no cool person or new person would want to be friends with me. So, to see like Buffy kind of see each other like being able to see themselves becoming friends, I think is like a really perfect thing, because they both have like something that each other needs, where I don't think Buffy wants to be like in the spotlight. So to kind of be friends with someone who isn't, I think is really cool. And then you can see Buffy, like when they're at the Bronze, is trying to help Willow out, like say, hey, why don't you seize the moment? Why don't you put yourself out there? And then we kind of see maybe that's a little bit of a mistake.
Yeah.
Especially in a town full of vampires.
She puts herself out there for a vampire. And I guess the only other character we really meet, who's like a big deal to talk about, I think, is Angel.
Mhm.
Buffy just kind of meets him on the street on the way to the Bronze, and he's
Yeah.
like really mysterious
Well,
and
he's following her.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then, she tricks him and like tackles him, which is a really cool scene,
yeah,
and interrogates him a little bit. It's like, who are you? Why are you following me? And then he's just like, like you said, super mysterious. Like, I'm a friend. Well, I think he said, I didn't say I was your friend or something.
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, and then he kind of furthers a little bit of Buffy's destiny thing or whatever, where he's like, I want to kill them all. And that kind of starts Angel's whole redemption arc and everything that we'll get to, but we just get a little bit of a taste of Angel in this, which I
yeah,
think is perfect because he will get his own episode in
yeah,
this season. Yeah, furthering Buffy and Giles' relationship that you get to see like their whole like I love how they reveal because Willow doesn't find out about Buffy in this episode, but Xander does.
yeah,
And I love like the conversation that she has with Giles where, he reveals, I mean, we get a little bit of a snippet at the beginning because before they do the Buffy intro, which is the greatest intro of any television show ever, we get
yeah,
the
and
whole spiel
yeah,
of her
in
destiny.
every generation,
Yeah,
there's a chosen one.
yeah. And then we get that reiterated by Giles a little bit. And then, a lot of like really fun dialogue. Of course, I mentioned it earlier. Just like little like one-offs where it's like, did you also send off for the Time Life series? Did you get the phone? And he goes, the calendar. I don't know if that also hints at a further relationship that he'll have going on. I don't know
I
if
think
they're.
that's just literally just a calendar.
I understand, but sometimes I'm like, did they think about that like, very early on? Because that's another thing about Buffy is that certain things that you think might be kind of random might foreshadow something later, and they'll
Yeah,
call back something from earlier in the show or earlier in the season that actually ends up being really important later on, and it's one of my other favorite things about the show. And so that's why, like, I'm sure it was just a one-off joke, but I was like, well, maybe that factors in to later stuff, but probably not. But then you get the brilliant scene between Buffy and Giles in the Bronze
yeah, that's a good scene.
when Giles is trying to like, train her, but he's also very confused about all the Americans because Giles is British. And like, what they're doing, he's like trying to teach her how to hone, which is one of my favorite things that he says is he wants to teach her. Maybe she's not going to like need to learn everything in the way that he wants. Because he's like, you need to focus and hone and be able to scan this crowd and see vampires without even you need to be able to sense them. And then she's like, "There's one," and then, and then he's like, "But you didn't hone."
Yeah, she talks them based off its clothes. So
Yeah. She uses her like fashion sense, and she's like, "That's a vampire right there." And I think that's like a perfect other way to factor in that they're all in high school. That she's not just a slayer, but a girl who's really into fashion, and that's another big thing about the show is the clothes. The show is very fashionable in a lot of ways.
I was gonna say too, it shows how like, and this is a really big theme in Buffy, is that she's constantly like breaking with tradition, and it's
Yeah,
kind of implied that, or not even applied sometimes it's just outright stated, like the reason she is such a good slayer is like one her relationships and her friendships and stuff, which is a lot different from other slayers in the past we learned, but
yeah,
also like her unique personality and like just how she's interested in the things that she's interested in and how she is resourceful and uses things, like the way her mind works and everything. Like, I don't know, we get a
yeah.
sense this is like the first thing that we see where like she's not traditional, but that's like actually an advantage, it seems like.
Yeah. That's actually a brilliant point. That's one that I've thought about too. One where Buffy being who she is, flaws and strengths just makes her just a great character. and just makes her, you know, kind of like Batman in a way. She like has her code, and we get to see that with other dynamics when we have other Slayers who may not have learned. You know, that's a little bit of a spoiler. Sorry. And so you get to see that this is kind of like the perfect way for her to become the best Slayer that she can, is to not throw away tradition, but not be so hard-lined on it, and find solace in her friends. And, you know, because traditionally the Slayer is supposed to be alone and a loner and not have relationships and tight relationships with people. And we get to see that that's one of Buffy's big strengths. So that was a great point, Gary, for sure. Yeah, and then we just basically have like this end scene where we have, you know, well, after Buffy attacks Cordelia, you have Buffy trying to find Willow, make sure she doesn't get eaten by a vampire. Xander, of course, goes with her, and we get to see a really great moment in the tomb or a...
Yeah, it's like a mausoleum.
Mausoleum, yes, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Where she gets, you know, attacked by Darla and Luke and the poorly dressed vampire, and she easily kills him.
I don't know, it ends on a cliffhanger, right? Like she's about to get...
Well, she kills him, and then, you know, she's attacked by Darla and Luke. Luke goes in to, you know, kind of attack her while she's in a crypt, a coffin. I love the lines that they have, you know, just like the cheesy kind of lines. Luke, you're strong. I'm stronger. And yeah, just so much of that is just perfect, and it's just perfect for like a daytime like TV show. I love these kinds of 22 episode shows that they don't really make anymore.
Yeah, and also like this scene sets up like Buffy's fighting style, which is like very quippy. Like she's, especially when the, you know, it's not like a big like end of the season fight. She's constantly like trying to do banter with the vampires and the demons and stuff, and like she starts that like right off the bat with Darla and everything, and with Luke. So it like really sets the tone for like the entire show.
She pops in the mausoleum. She's like, "Oh, I like what you did with the place," and stuff like that.
And she's like, "Oh, like." Darla doesn't know who she is, which doesn't, if you take it, it doesn't make, it's continuity wise, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but based on what they did later with Darla's character. But for purposes of this episode, she's like, oh, finally someone who doesn't know who I am in this town. And
yeah. Oh yeah, and we forgot to kind of, well, we touched on it, but the whole thing with Principal Flutie. When he's pretty nice to her at first.
At first, he sees that she burned down the gym, and because he rips up her old record, and he's like, "Forget about it." And then he reads that she burnt down the gym, or maybe she says it, and then he just like tapes it back up. It's like, it's a great moment.
Yeah. This show is filled with great moments. I mean, it's always going to be our number one favorite show. There's just nothing that can ever top it, because we got that nostalgia rooted.
Yeah.
We fell in love because of this show. We had a son because of this show. Honestly, I mean, you tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, I don't know. We might have still dated and got married without Buffy.
It's possible, but like it's such a big part of our lives that I feel like
it's definitely a big part of our lives.
Yeah, so I put a lot into it, of course, but you know, it is a show that's very important to us, and I'm very excited to get this series underway. We're going to cover The Harvest the next time, which is the other half of the to be continued two-parter pilot. Season 1 is, I think, really good. I love a lot of the episodes in the season.
Yeah.
It was just a little under budget, and they couldn't get, you know, more budget until they did this season.
I mean,
it's one of the...
Yeah, they also honed the writing a lot more in season 2.
Yeah. Especially like overarching stuff and continuing storylines.
Yeah.
But, you know, we get a lot of great Monster of the Week episodes in the season.
It's fun. The fashion's really fun in this season.
I love the way that, you know, the episode also started off with so many different shots from the first season for Buffy's dream. when she's
Yeah.
having a nightmare, and it's like, so many shots that you'll see later on,
Yeah.
which is a cool, callback or foreshadowing of what's to come.
And the characters are really solid from the beginning. Like everyone's really well established in this
Yeah.
first episode. And their characters, like, it's not like you watch the first season of the show and then you come back for the second season and it's kind of like a completely different show. It's like you
No,
can
yeah,
tell
yeah,
it's matured. They have a bigger budget, maybe more time to write and film everything and put everything together. But it's still definitely like exactly the same show, exactly the same characters. Like it flows really well.
yeah. It certainly does. And season 1 is, I mean, for me, I'm such a fan that I'm just like, even if I have criticisms, like
Yeah.
they're like, what do you call it, like nitpicky, and like they ultimately don't matter because I love all the characters. I love every episode of Buffy. I say is great because it's an episode of Buffy, even if I have some that I think are overall better quality than others. And I think that's the same with the seasons, is that I think just a season of Buffy is just amazing. And I know that there's a lot of disagreements out there about, certain seasons and which ones are better, which ones make people really mad. Same with certain characters. We'll get into some of that, I'm sure, throughout the series. But ultimately, this is kind of just a love letter to the show. And
Yeah.
I've been wanting to do this for so long. And Carrie can tell you, I've been
Yeah.
kind of bugging her to like, let's
For
start this.
years, I think, at this
Yes,
point.
it has been.
Because we
And
definitely started talking about this at least before Elliot was born, probably before
yeah.
that as
Oh
well.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, and this was really fun. And thank you for watching this first episode. If you haven't seen Buffy, I hope we didn't really like spoil anything for you. I don't
I'm
think
gonna say this is not the show to like this. We're not intending to do this for people who are trying to like watch episode 1 and then watch this episode. Like,
yeah.
uh,
Well, yeah. You
I
guys kind of got to
just
watch the whole
I
show
think
first.
yeah, because I don't want to. One, I don't think there's anyone out there realistically who's gonna watch this who hasn't seen Buffy in its entirety before. We're not like a big like.
Well, because I could see like some shows might be the ones where you watch the episode, then you watch our
Yeah,
review.
yeah.
But it's gonna be
There's
too.
plenty of other, because I think as like longtime fans of the show, we want to kind of be free to discuss the connections between different
Yes.
episodes and
Yep.
different seasons and like
Foreshadowing.
yeah, exactly.
And we don't want to accidentally spoil anything in either. So, that's why we just, if you haven't seen it, maybe go watch the show. It's only 144 episodes. And then, come back and, start watching our series. And if you have seen it, please like and subscribe to the channel and just comment. And we would love to see, like, Buffy comments, people who love the show and just want to engage with, our thoughts, give us your thoughts. We may even at the end do rankings. It could be fun to do like rankings of episodes.
Maybe we did that with Hunter.
We did that on our other channel, Welcome to Prime Time, which is a horror channel that you can go check out. We did a whole thing with Hunter. We could also revisit that, if we decide to, but don't hold us to that. We might not do that.
Please don't, because I feel like we already did that.
But
it took a lot of time.
Yes, but it could be fun to do it again after another rewatch. But
maybe I don't know.
It doesn't sound like it's gonna happen, but we'll see.
We'll leave it open.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah, comment, your favorite part of this episode, the first episode.
For sure. And grrr.
Arg.